Good morning, everybody. Scarpo again. Question I have for the day is, what is a spiritual teacher, and do we need them? And I'd like to start off by saying that I'm not here to belittle or to poke fun at any particular teachers or spiritual guides, if you will. This is a question that I've been pondering for quite a while now, and there are many different ways to look at the aspect of gurus or spiritual teachers, but the best ones will always tell you that you don't need a guru or a spiritual teacher. However, the point of a spiritual teacher, if you will, is not to teach anyone any type of knowledge or information. Almost all gurus and teachers, they don't bring forth any actual information. A good one won't. They will just allow you to delve within yourself and then help you to express the true nature of who you are, your spiritual nature, if you will. And I've had many multiple different views of these teachers. I've never had a spiritual teacher myself, or a mentor, or a guru. I've taught myself, but in those moments of learning, I've often learned from people who were gurus or teachers, perhaps reading a book, say like Ram Dass or someone like that, who considered themselves a guru at one time or another, but not learning anything from the people, but rather picking the parts out that allow them to live their lives better and leading by example. But the reason why this came to mind today is I know that a lot of people need direction and feel like they need a particular better understanding of the world around them. And since I'm just an individual, I don't know what goes through another person's head. I don't know where another person is in that particular point in their life. So to say that people don't need teachers is of course a falsity, but to say that we must have a teacher to find our true nature is complete false. Many of us have already found that truth within us that allows us to know that we are our only ultimate truth. That no matter what anybody else says or what discussions we have, we're at the mercy of our own discoveries and our own realizations. And what I like to see is people who are learning from others, who want to teach for the very mere fact of they want people to become more aware. But there's this fine line of teaching a person to become aware and teaching a person what you think is awareness. Such as, this is what's worked for me, maybe it'll work for you, as opposed to this is what works for everyone. When you're talking about teachers of knowledge, they're talking about specific items of knowledge. They're putting information into your head. A spiritual teacher won't do that, or shouldn't do that. But kind of to an extent you have to. But my main concern lies in people who are selling spiritual courses, who are selling papers to tell you how to live your life to be spiritual, to tell you how to be more in touch with your essence, who tell you how to ascend or how to, improve your chakras, or, it's all a bunch of nonsense to me. And I don't like to feel that way about it. I like to keep an open mind, which I have. For about the last 5 or 6 years, I've really been thinking about this. Thinking, well, if this has worked through history for a lot of people, then perhaps it has some validity. So all the research I've done on chakras and awareness and everything has led me to the conclusion that they're all just labels and archetypes for us growing. You could call the chakras you could compare the chakras to the stairway to heaven, if you will. The ladder to awareness, the ladder to knowledge. And often, like Kundalini works with the lower chakras to push and work up towards your third eye. Well, then you talk about Zen, and they say they bypass all of those chakras, and they go straight for the third eye. They say, why bother with all the lower chakras when you can go straight to your true self? These are two completely different ways of thinking about the same chakra system. And I use that as an example because while one person may be working so hard to raise their kundalini, another person may be able to completely bypass that primal side and just become aware, or enlightened, if you will. But this is all speculation. If a person claims to have attained enlightenment, there's really nothing they can teach you or tell you about that. There's absolutely no way that a person of complete awareness can express that in verbal means. And so since we don't have a language to express some of these things, like Satori or an awakening, we do the best we can. But a teacher who's had a particular experience, they really want to convey that sometimes to their students, to say, you can get here too, you can get here too. And we tend to miss that each person has their own path. Not everybody can meditate for 5 hours a day, and nor should we need to, I find that people are working too hard towards finding enlightenment, if you will, and that word has just become a joke to me, because there's no such thing as enlightenment. There's no such thing as a moment where everything makes sense. There are moments of clarity and temporary enlightenment, which I would call Satori, if you will, but I have yet to meet a completely enlightened being, and I think if I did, what would that mean? Does that mean that they've, ascended beyond the means of language and basic human life? How is that enlightenment in any way, shape, or form? How is moving up into the mountains, becoming a monk and meditating for days on end without any contact, how is that enlightenment? How is that serving the whole of the body of humanity? And I don't mean to belittle or demean it, because it's worked for centuries for many different cultures. But the realistic Western world that I live in right now, we have to find a different approach, a westernized version of this enlightenment, and to realize that if you're working too hard to attain a state of awareness, you will never attain it, because it should be effortless and it falls into place. The realizations that we make are based on knowledge and wisdom and collected information, but ultimately each one of us is only privy to certain parts of that puzzle and certain bits of that information. And it's really easy for us to just say, hey, this should work for you too because it worked for me, and it doesn't. But the big problem I have is many of these courses that people are selling. You're selling $149.95 for this course that can teach you to be happy and enlightened and aware. If you're leaving the teacher out of the teaching, you've completely missed the point. You cannot write down how to live your life in a book for people. You can suggest ideas, but so many people bought into this New Age garbage over the last 20 years, They realized that they'd been fooled in a lot of ways and that there was something beyond the physical, and they want to understand it. And rather than going inside to find those answers, they look without and look at other people's research and other people's information, which is how we develop what's worked and what hasn't. Like, we look at other people's studies and say, okay, this is what we have or haven't found. But it shouldn't go beyond that to where we attach to some particular idea and live with a particular practice that omits thinking for ourselves. So each of us is going to find enlightenment in our own way, but it's a continual process. And if a teacher is a true spiritual teacher, they should be doing it for a very fair price, just enough to make it by, because people who do that do it for the love of it, not for the money. So if you're suspicious about what somebody's charging you to teach you how to be yourself, you should be suspicious. Because there's a lot of money to be made off of New Age bullshit out there, and you got to sift through it and figure out what's for real and what's not. And my conclusion is that only the person, the individual, can find their true nature. And all a teacher can do is sit and go, There's not much else to it. I guess that's all I got on that. I don't know. I'm sure people have found solace in a teacher that has taught them how to live, but perhaps they're missing the way that they should live. Or maybe not. Maybe some people are so lost that they do need some direction, and that's important for them. But for the masses, to just believe what these people are feeding you is not doing any justice to the understanding of the self. And that's my opinion on that. So, peace out, everybody, and you can buy my book now for $599. Just it'll tell you how to live your life.